Hello, baseball fans, and welcome back to another video. What a day in the wild card series to be a Padres fan and a Cubs fan for two very different reasons. If you're a Padres fan, you're probably jumping up in your seat right now as the Padres clinched a win 3-0 against the Cubs. But if you're a Cubs fan, you're probably rocking back and forth in the corner after watching a horrendous game against the Padres. I know Brandon specifically probably turned off the game halfway through watching it. And we're here to talk about it as always. So, Brandon, let's get your thoughts on this crazy game after it's such an interesting turnaround from yesterday's wild card game against these two incredible teams.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not turn the game off. I'll show my hand. I am a Cubs fan. And man, that is one of the worst baseball games I've ever watched. It was just all credit to the Padres, right? Well, we talked about this before the series, where if the Cubs were going to win, it was going to have to be in the early innings against the starting pitchers. Because once the Padres got into their bullpen, it was lights out. And I mean, holy moly. I mean, the Padres averaged 99.9 miles an hour on their fastballs. Every pitcher combined averaged almost 100 miles an hour on their fastballs for the Padres today. I mean, say what you want about the Cubs not, hitting in the big moments with runners in scoring position, about tons of strikeouts. The Padres' firepower on the pitching staff is unreal, and it was just a very monotonous game to watch. There was very little excitement. I mean, Manny Machado hit a home run on what was like one of like three mistake pitches on the day by either side. I thought Shodi Managa was pretty solid after the opener, which we'll talk about momentarily, but. Yeah, I mean, this was the Padres, and if the Padres advance, this is their MO. This is how, this is the game plan for them moving forward. Get a little bit of, depth out of their starting pitcher, three, four, 5 innings. And at that point, after that, it's just you got to roll with the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, again, we spoke about this at length yesterday, but again, we were kind of worried to see what was going to happen with Imanaga. I also think it's really interesting. Again, he performed pretty well, but I don't think he was at 100%. I think he could have done way better. He was missing a lot of the times. He was throwing a good amount of balls and throwing pretty in the zone and letting out a lot of pitches at the end of the, and that is not the normal show. If you're a Cubs fan, you know that is not the normal type for Shota Imanaga. And again, I think the Padres really capitalized that, which great for them. Again, if you're a Cubs fan, you're shaking your head right now. And again, it really shows something that if you watched our last video, I said that it's a quick turnaround time, but the Padres have 24 hours to learn from their mistakes, and I think they really did capitalize that at the end of the day. 3-0 is nothing to, shake your head at, really.
Yeah, no, I think this being a three-game series, this is where the chess match is going to come into play because I personally really disagreed with Craig Counsell's management of the early game today. Uh, Andrew Kittredge did not work as an opener. He gave up a run in the first inning, a home run to Machado the second time through the order, which the whole point of the opener was that he avoided the heart of the order twice through. So I didn't really understand not subbing him out for like Michael Soroka or maybe intentionally walking Machado there. But credit to Craig Counsell. He did do an excellent job managing the end of the game where he got actual valuable innings out of like Taylor Rogers, Colin Ray did a really solid job. And now his best guys, Brad Keller, Daniel Palencia, those guys are fresh now for game three, and it'll be all hands on deck. The Padres are obviously in a different situation where Mason Miller and Morahone are probably going to be out of commission tomorrow. And if they're not, it's 3 days in a row of like pretty extensive pitching for them. So, I mean, that's an advantage for the Cubs. Obviously, Darvish is starting tomorrow for the Padres. That's obviously a situation in which Darvish is a good pitcher. He has a lot of postseason experience. He obviously is much older now. He doesn't have the same stuff he used to. If the Cubs can get to Darvish early and, if Jameson Taillon can get through the order a couple of times and turn things over to the better relievers in the Cubs bullpen, it's definitely an advantage for the Cubs with the way this series has been managed for the first two games.
I think the one thing that we also think about, if you're a Cubs fan or if you followed the Cubs throughout the 2025 season, is they've kind of bit the bullet when it comes to the trade deadline. If we look back at the trade deadline, this is the result of what happened. They didn't make a lot of moves. They only really received two players at the end of the day, and we're really suffering because of it. The Cubs are, when I say we, the Cubs are really suffering because of it. They don't really have a fleshed out line of pitchers. I mean, Jameson Taillon is a good pitcher, but he's not the pitcher that they need right now. I mean, Shota Imanaga was an okay pitcher, but again, he did not deliver today. And Matthew Boyd was a great pitcher for day one, but he's they don't have an A-lister right now. And again, they in our general opinion, I mean, you could ask Brandon or I, or maybe a lot of Cubs fans, to be honest, they should have made more moves and they didn't. And now they're reaping, I don't want to say the benefits because there is no benefits. They're just reaping the results of what happened during a not so fruitful trade deadline. And it is upsetting, but at the same time, this is a learning experience for the Cubs. A closing remark for me is the hope is that with Jameson Taillon, he still is a veteran and a good pitcher for the Cubs. So hopefully, again, even though he's going up against you, Darvish, tomorrow as a pitcher, he still has some tricks up his sleeve.
Yeah, no, I think again, it's not like the Cubs season is in the hand of like a rookie that has thrown like a couple of games like the Red Sox season is now, which, obviously is concerning for them after losing to the Yankees in game two. But I mean, it's just obviously, look, this is the result of Justin Steele being out for the season, Cade Horton having his very untimely injury, and obviously the Cubs, like you said, not making a move for that big starting pitcher at the trade deadline. Again, the prices were really high. Jed Hoyer explained everything in the way that he did, but it's this point, when you get to this, it's a sudden death game in the playoffs where you're like, wow, I maybe I should have paid that price for Mackenzie Gore, whoever it was. It's just, again, no shade to Taillon. He's a very solid veteran pitcher, but obviously he's had his injuries recently. He's been a little inconsistent. The leash is going to be very short for him, and Craig Counsell is going to dip into the bullpen, which, obviously that's just sort of chance at that point when you get there. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's really exciting that it's a sudden death game. The Padres, again, even though some of their better relievers might not be in the game tomorrow, they're still excellent. I think they still have the advantage in that regard, and it'll be up to the Cubs offense to actually show up in game three in the way they haven't the first two games of the series. But as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. We're getting to sudden death territory already early in the postseason. It's very exciting, obviously very nerve-wracking. What are your thoughts? What are your predictions for game three? Do you think the Cubs are going to come out on top at home? Do you think the Padres are going to keep pitching their way to the NLDS? Let us know your thoughts, and as always, we'll try to respond to every comment.